So we made it to the end. It has been a really intense day of, I think, a continuous flow of knowledge sharing, and we have been hearing from, like, made the full journey. We have been hearing from the big companies to the startups and even entire innovation ecosystems. And I think it was really interesting to hear how the different players think that we can work better to connect the dots. To wrap up, I'd also like to invite to the floor 4 people. We have Lena Miranda joining us, Sanz, Jean-François Balducchi, and André Domin. So you can find your seats here on the stage. And regarding the content of the day, we heard this morning how Science Park managers of areas of innovation should think of themselves as cultural agents, not only being stuck on the economic matters, but also look further at the broader layers of society and social evolution. To that, we could also add the mention of how current managers should start changing their business model, even perhaps taking more risk, and also how we should ensure that the technologies we work to push forward be responsible and inclusive. To that, we saw some speakers also adding the layer of transhumanism and even the dangers of technology, or the challenges, we could say, with cyber attacks and data sharing, how we go about that. And I think a key word that really triggered my interest was the word trust, because we heard both the big companies and the startups call for more openness, generosity in collaboration, and even if personally agreeing that collaboration is the winning strategy, I'd also just like to play the devil's advocate for a second, and perhaps we should also ask ourselves what are the limits to this European generosity towards also, or when we think of other competitors who may have other approaches of point of view. Simply something more to reflect upon. And in summary, there was really a lot of food for thought. I'm not really sure we have digested it all to wrap it up, but we will give it a try. And for that, I have 4 bright minds of our network with me. I have asked them all just to share, instead of summarizing the different sessions, just to share their main takeaway of the day, so that we can continue reflecting and warm up the engines as we will discuss also these topics further at the World Conference in Lund in September. So who would like to start?
I can go if you want, Ebba. Yeah.
Okay.
So
sure.
Okay.
I just wanted to say you should start.
Okay. Good. If I may take 30 seconds, because I realize now that we haven't done something that we usually do, and that's because the program was really very fit and compact. This is an IASP event of our European division, and I actually should have at the very beginning introduced the IASP. Most of you know what the IASP is, but for those of you who don't, let me say, it's the global network of science, technology parks and areas of innovation, created back in 1984, so we have already some history behind our backs. We are the only really global association in our industry with around 400 members in 73 countries, which in turn represent a sizable network of companies, the companies located in parks that goes well over 100,000 companies, in an overwhelming majority strongly innovative and technology-based. We have the headquarters in Spain, a branch office in China, and we organize many activities throughout the world every year. Having said that, there are many bullet-like things that one could say, but if asked to pick up one, I'm going to be a bit selfish. I will pick up one that I myself introduced at the very beginning, and is so that I make sure that nobody forgets it. But I think it's important enough to underline. I think that one thing that was highlighted specifically at this workshop is the fact that science and technology parks and similar agents are not just economic agents. We have a lot of saying as cultural agents. Since the very beginning, we have introduced changes in the culture in which businesses are done. The innovation concept has been largely introduced by us. I'm not claiming that we are the sole actors to do that, but we have been very important ones. And nowadays we have to seize that part of our nature and make sure that we are heard and seen also as agents that can shape in the right way certain new elements that need to be shaped before they become completely amorphous and deformed. And that is something I would like to highlight. This is something I think all science park managers have to incorporate to their daily ado. And that would be my first remark.
Thank you.
Because I'm supposed there are going to be more, I think.
Yeah, no, it's simply not to exhaust the topics, and I think we heard so much during the day, so it's great to hear just your main highlights. So, André, what would you say?
Yeah, firstly, as Louis said, it's an international network, and we are usually visiting not only within Europe, but on the global scale, different clusters or systems. And here, I counted the people on stage. And it were 10 male and 13 female. So I guess this is the first time, at least for me, to see 30% more female speakers on stage than ever I have experienced. And second thing is tech with a purpose. And we were talking about it, Louis, me, in the introduction, Daya, but also the minister and almost everybody. What is the purpose? And we still have the challenge, I guess, to decide whether a business model is worth it and whether this business model does have a positive impact on society and mankind. And Daya was talking about the vulnerability by using new technologies and, for instance, bias in gender in Google and stuff like that. And so for me, it was most obvious to see that this is kind of the future most important challenge, not only to identify the good science and then do great tech transfer and get the right financial parties involved and stuff like that, only to create a new business, but to kind of balance what is possible and what makes sense. And I think also this could be a good role for IASP to kind of level this both motivations.
So thank you, André. Yeah. Let's move to the host, Lena.
Okay. I was also reflecting upon what you have been thinking about, but being in a time where the political systems are very complex around the world and the technologies are emerging at a very fast pace, it leaves us to not wait for the politicians to leverage the visions to us, but to actually initiate a very important conversation on tech with a purpose about what is the good society of the future, and try to inspire both politicians but also citizens and local servants and others, of course, businesses, of course, and not to wait to get an assignment. I heard Daria saying this also, but to take the mandate to actually initiate and work with these questions. And I have been thinking, going around the world conferences with IASP, that we are actually bridging countries by being change agents in science and technology. And that is a very important role, I think, that we play. And also to ask ourselves, what are our roles as leaders of science and technology parks, and what discussions do we need to conduct? How do we engage philosophers to talk about the ethical perspectives, the social scientists about behaviorals and other things that are really important in this area of time. It has been a lot of focus on tech during the past decades, and I think we need to move further to have more disciplines, and that's why we embrace the multi-helix perspective, to integrate more different opinions on what we're doing in the science parks and technology areas of innovation.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, precisely for that, I see the parks as in a very unique position because of the different company sizes that we gather, and the quality of the talent and the people we have under one roof, you could say, as building blocks for this co-creation, and even, I would say, co-action as we collaborate. So let's move to the organizer also of our next event, the World Conference in Nantes, Jean-François.
Yes, Ebba, it's difficult to add something now, but James started. I'm going to call Luis James, because after more than 20 years within IASP, I've learned that now we have become special agents. So that's good to know. So that means that IASP is still moving. Now, to be more seriously, what if I want to just focus on one point? It's quite linked to what my colleagues have said. Is that I'm going to quote Caroline when I asked her, "Do you consider yourself as an innovation hub?" She said yes, without any hesitation. And I think this is really, for me, the key word and the key point for IASP members, Science Park or area of innovation or whatever, because what is important is the role we play within the ecosystem. And we are in a unique position to play this role, because an innovation hub is gathering all the skills in terms of incubation, acceleration, TTO, collaborative research, linking the different clusters, which are very important for the strategy of the economy of a country and for Europe. And so we are really the nodes and very key nodes of this network. So I think, especially when it comes, and it's a transition with the event you mentioned, Ebba, with the fourth industrial revolution, if the role of our members vis-à-vis this transition is really to be innovation hubs, because we need to mix different fields to address mobility issues, industry, agriculture, health. It's going to mix many different fields. It's going to mix ICT, life sciences, energy, advanced technology. So innovation is at a crossroad of this. And so we need, I think we have, the future for us is quite bright, it's quite exciting. And if you want to know more, of course, I invite you to come to Nantes in order to continue this discussion in September.
So thank you, Jean-François. That links very much to this whole issue about interdiscipline and cross-sector collaboration, which we see at local, regional, but also in our network, even at international level, which is very key. We are good on time, so I would even say not to leave any burning questions, also because I know some of you are already addressing many of these issues also in your parks. If there are questions to the panel, or if you would like to respond to each other's comments, we could have time for that too. Let's just see if we also have a question from the floor, if anything you would like to ask here from the closing panel. Yes, Björn?
I would like to ask the panel, you have spent, mostly those who are not from Sweden, you have spent the day now listening to testimonies from the Swedish innovation system. And I would like to ask your impressions, and if there is anything in particular that you feel is significant for the Swedish system as compared to other countries.
No, it's your turn.
Lena?
This was so...
No, that's for foreigners. That's for foreigners.
Difficult question.
Okay,
No. Luis said it's my turn. No, but I was thinking about that as well, because at least from a German perspective, it sounded very, very much perfect, the Swedish system, to be honest. And the question for me or for IASP would be, how can we transfer that model to other countries? And I guess there are harsh limitations to do so. This is just like comparing any university with MIT or Stanford, for instance. You can't compare it, and you can't say, okay, let's do Silicon Valley in elsewhere. So the question for me is more from an ISP perspective, how can we help other countries or clusters that are less perfectly organized, and then they miss some of the ingredients that Sweden does. Because I don't see, apart from being a very small country and maybe having a recruitment issue with those 10 million people, but in general, I would say, at least from my perspective, it sounded really promising and good. And even if the minister says we have to embrace new technology, and the public also says we will embrace new technology because we know we will all benefit, best thing that can happen, I guess.
I will slightly disagree with the president of the division, but slightly. I think we have a lot of similarities between European countries in terms of innovation policies. At least for France, I think between France and Sweden, we have a lot of similarities. But there is one big difference, and the same for Germany. You are very lucky to have a small domestic market. That means your companies, startup companies, they are automatically international. And this is key when it comes to innovation, of course. I don't know for Germany, but in France, the big problem we have is to bring these companies abroad, even within the EU. Maybe the language problem, I don't know, but it's still, but also the size of the domestic market, because it's enough to start with. So in terms of organization, I think it's not like if we were talking about compare China and Sweden or China. No, Sweden and Germany, or Sweden and France, or Spain, it's quite similar. But then you are a small country, So like Israel, you have to go abroad, and I think it's a good point. Very lucky. And as you are also very well connected to the rest of the ecosystem, I don't see really any drawback in the ecosystem. Sorry.
I think we need to talk over dinner.
Did you want to add a point, Lena?
No, I just, a short remark. We had a German delegation coming to Stockholm, and they were asking my colleague in Kista, how do you organize your innovation ecosystem? And he says, we're not organizing it, we're coordinating it. Mm-hmm. And I think that is one difference between maybe Sweden and maybe Germany, maybe France, that we are quite a fragmentized innovation ecosystem. As you heard, we are a lot of small entities. We have no budget. We have ambitions that are like universal, but very small budget. So we need to be good in coordinating and collaborating and co-creating and doing co-action in order to succeed. So this is what we have learned. Mm-hmm. Then another challenge for the Swedish innovation ecosystem is, of course, all of the projects. And we call ourselves project junkies because that's where the money are. So we run for the projects, and sometimes maybe we lack of long-term strategies because we look too short on how to fund our business. So that I would say that is a challenge. If everyone's been very positive here today, maybe this is two of our challenges.
Yeah, I was thinking about when where's Christina?
Christina left, yes,
okay.
Sorry.
But she was talking about these eight entities who are setting up a innovation advice quality system. And they started with 8 advisors of innovation support, and then they were left with 5, and they coordinated what they were doing. But the question would be, is something missing? So what would happen if those 8 or 5 wouldn't be perfect, even if they were coordinated? So is there the ability of the system to say, listen, we missed something here, and either we need another entity or we need to refocus those 2 entities?
I understand. I think the system has a lot of qualities. Of course, there are probably things that are lacking even in the Swedish innovation system. To think otherwise would be not so humble. But for instance, we talked about the scale-ups and support for scale-ups. that was something that we saw was lacking in the Swedish innovation system. And since a couple of years back, we have a couple of different initiatives to support the scale-ups. And I think this is probably going to be something else in the future. Also, the IGNITE project that several people have mentioned was also that we could see that in Sweden historically, we've been very good at working together, public and private sphere, but with the European procurement laws, this has been very difficult for the startups to do business with the public sector. And I think IGNITE was kind of an answer to give the startups a new market by working with the large corporates and giving access to first customer, but also a possibility to scale their business in a domestic market, but also a global one, because many of the large corporates are global. So I think from time to time, there are new we can identify lacks in the system, but that we are very good at finding new initiatives.
Thank you. So another question from Slovenia.
Yes. I may come out as provocative, but as Louis said in the morning, that's the main reason to get the brain rolling. I will leave you, sorry, Louis, out because you are the president of the IASP, but I can attack 3 countries that are much bigger than Slovenia. So here is Germany, Sweden, and France. I would say
Can you just
sorry,
a little higher? Yeah.
Here there is, I forgot, Germany, Sweden, and France, which are probably the 3 countries with the highest GDP. So I would say they have the most capital because in this world, which is a brain-oriented world, they have the highest IQ. In average, I would say. So they know how to deal with this complex world. But my question is, can a body function without a heart, without legs, without feet? It can't. So today I asked a lot of very smart people. I would say the average today is about 140 or around 130 at least IQ. Nobody today told me the correct answer of where Ljubljana is.
Where are you?
Ljubljana is. I know you've been to Ljubljana, so you probably know, but before you went, you didn't know.
Yeah, I know.
Okay, then you're one of the rare people.
You know.
So, and Slovenia is not, we have 20,000 GDP. We're not a poor country. So, how can you talk about triple bottom line and all the aspects if you don't even know the countries of the world?
But that brave accusation is addressed to whom exactly?
It is a...
What is the capital of Madagascar? I was asking him.
I do not know.
What I can tell you, because I'm the oldest here in terms of being on the board of IASP, Louis doesn't count. I can tell you when you are on board of IASP, you go through a permanent examination, and you know every country, and yours, especially because you were competing to host the next World Conference in 2020. Unfortunately, you lost against Sevilla, but so everybody knows in the network where Ljubljana is. So you are a bit...
No, my point is not, I'm not angry.
No, it's not angry.
But people without money are being trodden upon. Slovenia, we do fairly well. But what about, I don't know, people who don't have the voice to speak up?
You know, in the network, we have people from Mauritius, we have people from very remote countries, and I'm pretty sure that IASP is not perfect, and we can't really improve a lot of things. But one thing that we cannot contest is that the fact that this network doesn't care about the UN representation or the way world is represented on the political level. We just treat every member, every people, even potential member, as a potential innovative actor, or a potential agent, I should say now. And but I understand your point, generally speaking. But I think that joining IASP was probably the smartest thing you ever done.
So, Lena?
I think a very good remark. Thank you for that one. And I think this is like referring to the earlier discussion about innovation taking place in the megacities versus taking place in Finspång. For one example, I think innovation happens everywhere today. It's not exclusive to a city, a megacity. It can happen anywhere. What you need to do is you need to attract talent. You need to have like some kind of critical mass. The critical mass doesn't have to be that big. I could be honest and say I went to the north part of Sweden with the board of the Swedish Incubators and Science Park, and we were visiting with Boden. And I didn't have very high expectations when I went there. And I was so happy to be proven wrong. Because when I left, I was very impressed with what Boden had done with the values of their community and the place where they're at. They had really, really digged into the strength of Boden and made a really good business deal out of it. So I think that innovation can happen anywhere, in Slovenia, in Madagascar, or wherever. But you need to work on exploring your strength and put together a good value proposition.
And to maybe, if I can add one thing, because I remember that. Yeah. Then it was a previous European Division meeting. It was in 2005, and it was a European Division that happened in Nantes. And we did invite Slovenia just joined EU a couple of years before, and there was a commissioner for research and innovation from Slovenia. His name was, because I think he's still alive, Janez Potočnik, and he came to Nantes, he came to see IASP, and he left a very, very strong impression. So, you know, I wanted to remind that detail, because it's not a detail, and we are quite honored to have the commissioner from Slovenia, first time in the commission to come to Nantes and to address the IASP membership. Sorry.
No, but I spoke about that, what you are asking before, when I said, can we transfer the Swedish system to anywhere on the world? And we can't, because there's not ABB, Siemens, and whoever, Saab, around the corner in Madagascar or in any African country or administrative district. So, and on the other side, we should not, and that's the problem of the EU somehow, we should not strive to have in every village ABB subsidiaries. So it's hard to say, but we need to concentrate, and even more concentrate in Europe on the highest potential clusters, I guess. And the European Commission is always trying to spread evenly, and then everybody's fine. But it doesn't work on an international, global scale. So my answer would be that exchange is the only way. We need to bring in those people from those countries that don't have these large players or possibilities, and make them get involved in how it works in a perfect system, and then they need to go back and find out on their own what the regional answer could be, the rural answer, because anybody or everybody benefiting is kind of an illusion, I would say. But on the other hand, you cannot have Stanford all over the place. So that's the way it is.
Thank you, André. We're just reaching the end, so we will leave Luis with a closing comment, and then we reach the ceremony of certificates for all of you.
Okay, but maybe let me just take advantage of the topic raised by Matej, because back in the 80s, where the industry of science and technology parks really exploded and went worldwide, the theory went that these type of projects could only be developed in regions or cities that were developed technologically wise in a high way, because only they had the different ingredients and elements that could create a science park that would make sense. As time went by, thanks to the audacity of certain colleagues in other parts of the world, we discovered that there are certain models of science and technology parks that can operate in wastelands where this was not happening, precisely to act as catalyzers and to make these things begin to happen. So these tools were no longer the privilege of the happy few that were already having a very high technological development with universities that were experienced in contact with businesses, etc. They could be implemented in many other parts of the world, but obviously not in the same way. That's, I think, also was what André was pointing out. There are certain innovation systems that cannot simply be transplanted in things where certain ingredients are not there. But the tool is operational nowadays worldwide. And if your call of attention was certain places are not getting all the attention that they deserve, you're probably right. We know the world is not a fair place per se. I would like to know whether the IASP can do something about it, and we'll be very glad to do it. I don't know whether that's our job or not, but yeah.
Okay, thank you. So I would like that to be the closing comment of our
Okay.
wrap-up session. And thank you to all of you. I think as we leave the stage, only Jean-François, you would like to also just say a few words about the upcoming World Meeting in Nantes. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Yes.
I think there is a short...
Okay, so I think we can... Wait.
We can, yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
So, okay, the fourth industrial revolutions and areas of innovation and Science Park as key booster for a successful transition. Okay, with the high patronage of our president. So, yeah, this is a very high expectation, but we got a lot of pressure for the headquarters of IASP. So we are encouraged to bring a lot of members. The three tracks would be the new technologies of this fourth industrial revolution. Second one would be impact on society and people, and the third one, the role of areas innovation and science park in this transition. So, okay, you know where is Nantes. We will have a lot of good sponsors, industrial sponsors like Airbus, for instance. Okay, so this is, I didn't know they were going to put so many details, just to show you a very quick view of what is Atlanpole, which is both an innovation hub with a lot of clusters connected, science parks, and try to have a strong leadership and a lot of innovative companies. This is some track records figures, just for you to know. This is since the creation of Atlanpole 30 years ago. This is to show you the kind of support we try to bring to the companies. So the theme I already mentioned. The program, which is mostly the more important thing. So we will have the 25th on Wednesday. So as usual, there is a pre-conference seminar on the Tuesday, the 24th. But we are going to organize 2 days, 2 discovery days, on Monday 23rd and Tuesday 24th. Monday would be a discovery day on both Paris region ecosystem and Toulouse ecosystem. And 24th would be around Nantes, in the region of Nantes and Nazaire, with aircraft. Airbus has got 2 plants in the region. And also you have the shipyard and many other interesting things to see. What I can say on quite more original, because plenary and parallel session, it's every World Conference has that one. But we are going to inaugurate a new process with this open innovation session and a pitch of industrials on their open innovation policy, and followed by B2B meetings with the delegates from the conference. And the already sponsors ready to pitch are Airbus, NG, the energy company, and Naval Group in the shipyard, military, marine industry. So Toulouse, okay, Airbus with Aerospace Valley is a cluster, aeronautic cluster in France, and Paris we have the Paris Region Digital Ecosystem, plus the incubator which is an incubator plus accelerator, and also a place where Western France innovative companies can meet in Paris. So, okay, so this is the way it's going to so if you want to come earlier, you will be very happy to visit this different location in Nantes and around Nantes. So just Technocampus Composite, it's about digital manufacturing and advanced technology. Creative Factory, okay, you understand. Institute of Advanced Studies is more about human sciences, and this could be interesting in the framework of impact on technologies on science and society and people. That's it, I think. Social program, of course, you know, but you will see the castle and the elephant and many things. And, which is more important, early bird, 23rd of June. So if you want to join at a very reasonable price, it's time to go on the website. I think the website is that one, IASP 2019 Nantes, and every other information you need, Ebba can provide, or myself, of course. Okay, okay, the sponsors, gold sponsors, Airbus, our friends from China, and I already mentioned that. And it's not still, I hope, we are still looking for other sponsors, so these are the ones who have already signed, but we are still looking for other sponsors, and we are negotiating with some of them.